All right. Okay, so I'm looking at this one. You essentially cut a star out, or you cut this star out from the background. Okay, all right, nice. You do also realize that when you made it bigger, you dropped the quality a bit, yeah?
Yes, so it was an accident.
All right, that's cool. That's not a problem. Okay. And this one, you did that using the polygonal lasso?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What was the original image? Oh, okay, I see it there. Oh, okay. So you cut the man out of that image. Okay. All right. Nice. Probably cut a little bit too much on the detail for the edges, though.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. One of
To what email? To what email am I supposed to send the assignment to?
leonardgreen@gmail.com. LENNARD Green. All right. You guys get to the hang of it. A star, though, being a shape, you could always, if you wanted to get it bigger, and again, it's just a plain white star, you could have actually started with a shape and customize it to just what you need. All right. So let me just demonstrate how you could do that again, not to deviate, but just to show you using a shape. Adobe Illustrator includes a star tool, which allows you to actually create stars with different dimensions. Photoshop has a built-in shape, which is a standard star, but you can customize it and tweak it to get it to look like this. Let me just illustrate. So custom shape tool. So let me try to free up some space on my system. All right, I want to get the star. I know most of you may already have that done, but it's a quick review. We're gonna use the basic star. And Photoshop's default star is a fat, ugly star. Everybody can agree with me on that, not true? However, we can use this tool, which is our direct selection tool, to tweak the points to get it just the way we like. So really and truly, the inner points, we want to just get them a little bit closer in. So click on a point, move it in, click on another point. Sorry. Right. And for the most part, you essentially just tweak it to look like the shape that you need. Yeah. Essentially, you're just manipulating the anchor points. Cool. So for things like shapes, you never want to lose quality and like make up the pixels bigger. If you can do something like get a vector version of it. Like this. Everybody get that, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool.
Yes.
All right, and then once we have the vector, we can change the color the way that we used to. All right, let's move on. Let's see. All right, so back to our original image. We cut out the fish once using a destructive method and we isolated it here, right? On the layer by itself. Layer one, let's call that fish destructive. How are we going to cut the fish out from this layer, right? And do it in a non-destructive manner? Anybody can recall at this point? So first of all, I converted my layer to a smart object, which means I cannot edit it directly. I can still edit it, and in our next class, either the next one or the one after that, we're going to be looking at smart objects. I'll show you how you can edit them. But how do we isolate the fish? Let me first load my selection. Remember, I have made a selection previously and I saved it, right? So I'm gonna load my selection. And what that will allow me to do is pull up my previous selection without making it all over again, right? I'm gonna select fish, right? And okay. So that essentially just reloads my selection. Give it a minute. Everybody sees that. Now, the easiest way for me to isolate the fish but not destroy the rest of the image is by creating what we call a mask, right? So a mask, as the name implies, masks parts of the image so that you cannot see them. So it only appears that what you can see is what exists of the image or the object. So to create a mask, we can do it doing a few different methods. The easiest way, let's use the menu. So once you have your selection here, and you ensure that you have the right layer selected in the layers panel, you go layer, layer mask. And what option do we want to select here? We have reveal or hide or reveal selection, hide selection. Any suggestions? Okay, so what we want to do, we want the fish to be visible. We want everything else to be hidden. The fish is currently selected, so we want to reveal selection. Revealing selection will essentially make your selection be visible and everything else around the selection invisible. So now this is what we're left with. Now I can see the entire thumbnail here on the layer, but then we have a secondary thumbnail which got added, and that is called the mask. Everybody sees that right there? Layer one. This mask shows you what is visible on the layer. So that little white area inside there is visible, and everywhere that is black has been masked out. So it's still there, but it's just covered by the mask, so we cannot see it. What that means is now we can simply drag this layer, but it's more than just the destructive fish, right? And if we put it here, notice it looks similar to that other fish, but look at the layers panel. This first one is just a fish, and all of the other pixels around it has been destroyed. Let's make it invisible for now. This one looks like almost the exact same thing, but it's been isolated non-destructively. That means that if I wanted to see any of the pixels that were made of the original image, I could pull them back into view by editing my mask. So to edit my mask, what I want to do is click on the mask. All right, so notice we can click on the thumbnail for the image. See, the thumbnail is selected here. And then we can click on the mask of the image. If we click on the thumbnail, we'll be editing the pixels directly. Or in this case, because it's a smart object, we cannot edit the pixels directly, right? So let's say we use a brush and we attempt to brush on it. We cannot do that because it's a smart object. But if we select the mask, notice the brush is active. And with the mask selected, we can paint on it with either black or white to hide or reveal certain areas of the mask. Let me explain how we do that again. So we select the mask, and if we wanted to hide, let's say we wanted to hide the fish tail, we didn't want it to be part of the selection, right, or the object. We could hide it by simply selecting black as our foreground color, right, and paint on the mask. So the areas on the areas I want to hide with black, and that will essentially hide those pixels for us. Everybody see that? Any questions on that? We're okay with that?
Sir,
Yes?
why didn't you put the foreground color as white?
Sorry, I'm hearing you very, very low. Could you speak a bit louder, please?
Why didn't you pick white as the foreground color instead?
Why didn't I click white as the foreground color? So let's do that. Let us change the foreground color from black to white. Right? And now if I paint on the mask with white, what do you think is going to happen? Painting on the mask with white actually reveals all of the pixels in the areas that you paint. So notice the pixels that previously looked like they were deleted or they have disappeared, I can actually bring them back into view by simply painting with white on the mask. If I want to bring everything back into view, we essentially just paint a little bit more. Yeah? Does everybody get that?
Got it.
Yes.
Right. Now, this is a non-destructive edit because we edited it, isolated the fish, but we didn't delete any of the surrounding pixels. Notice the other fish is still there, and we can pull up all of the pixels back into view. All right. Now, if we wanted to, again, isolate the fish, so we want to hide all of the pixels around it, we could simply change our foreground color back to black, right? And paint on the parts of the image that we wanted to hide again. Everybody understand how we mask?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, at this point, it's difficult for me to paint around and get all of the edges of the fish without erasing more than I want to, yes? Or, sorry, not erasing, but masking more than I want to, all right? But there's a way that we can actually contain where the brush affects, right? So what I'm gonna do again, I remember I had saved my selection, so I'm gonna put it back up, select, and I'm gonna load the selection. Again, the selection was saved as, oh, I lost it. Oh no, my bad, I can't do that because that was actually saved on the other layer. Yeah. Yeah, that was actually saved on that file, not on the other one. So yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna drag it back again from that. So to move it across again, click, drag across over onto the other layer and drop it there. Yeah. Let's just delete the old layer, layer one, with the mask that I messed up. We have our, again, non-destructive, so let's call it fish non-destructive. All right. So everybody understand basically how to apply a mask, yes? Let's do it again.
Yes, sir.
Let's do it again using a different method. So I'm going to delete the mask on this image by clicking on the mask here, the mask thumbnail. and drag it down to the bin. And once we delete the mask, we see our original pixels back in view. All right. Now, let's load the selection again. And it's really the same as making the selection, but actually, no, we cannot do that. Let's go back to the mask. Let's get the selection from the mask. So I'm going to save that selection. Click, select, and save selection so that I can pull it up in the future on that document. Let's call it fish. All right. Okay. All right. So now let's deselect the fish, delete the mask, and we should be back to our original image. To pull up the selection that we just saved, let's load it. So select, load selection, and we want to load the fish. All right, so we have our selection made. And let us do the reverse this time. So the last time we went to layer mask, and we used reveal selection to make the fish visible, but everything else hidden, right? Let's do the reverse. Let's go layer mask and hide selection. What do you think is going to happen when I click hide selection?
Well, the
The fish
background
gonna
is visible,
disappear.
but the fish gonna disappear.
The fish gonna disappear.
So it will essentially mask the fish out of the object, right? And if you look on the layers panel, what you will see now is the reverse, right? So you have the thumbnail showing the full image, but a little black area on the mask indicating where the fish was hidden, right? Now, if we wanted to make the fish visible again, right, by editing the mask, how would we do that? So we would do that by selecting the mask, right, and painting on it with either white or black. Take a look at my toolbar, my toolbox with my foreground and my background colors here. If I click on the thumbnail image, notice I get black and yellow, right? And let's change it black to something else. Let's put it red and yellow. So an easy way to tell if you're working with the right part of the layer, meaning the layer itself, the pixels of the layer, or the mask of the layer, is by looking at your foreground and background color. If you're editing the pixels, you will have your actual foreground and background color. From the minute you click on the mask, your foreground and background color changes to black and white because that is all they expect you to be using on the mask, right? Now, if I want to make the fish visible again on the mask, how do I edit the mask? I use my paintbrush tool, right? And I want to paint with white to reveal or to make the pixels visible. And I would want to paint with black if I wanted to make them invisible. So I just paint over the areas that were previously masked, and I can bring the fish back into view, right? And that is the essence of non-destructive editing. Editing in a way that you can always come back to your original content. Cool?
Yeah.
All right. Let's look at the second option, the second method. We sort of combine them, but the first thing that we did, remember, we had a rasterized layer. Let me get it back rasterized. So rasterized layer, which is a regular bitmap layer. On a regular bitmap layer, it means you can paint on it, you can erase it, you can destroy it in any number of ways. One of the things that you want to do if you want to maintain the integrity of your layers, meaning you don't want to destroy the layers, is by converting your layer to a smart object. And there are a few different ways to do that. I'm going to go for the simplest way again right now. So you would right click on the layer and convert to smart object. Notice the thumbnail changes. It includes a little icon that indicates that it is a smart object. And is actually an embedded smart object. We look at the different types of smart objects in our next class, right? Now, if I were to try to use the brush, notice it will not allow me to brush on the smart object. The error says this smart object must be rasterized before proceeding. Edit contents will no longer be available. And it's asking rasterize the smart object. I do not want to rasterize it because the smart object maintains my pixels intact. So how can I edit the smart object? Well, I could mask it, right, to hide the pixels, or I could edit it directly by right-clicking on the layer, the smart object layer, and clicking edit contents. What that is going to do is open this smart object for me now into a new layer, right? Or sorry, a new document. Notice it shows up at layer1.psb as a new file. And that is actually the pixel data now that we can edit. So I'm just gonna very nastily paint a few red spots on top of the image to illustrate how we would edit our smart objects, right? And just to illustrate again what a smart object is, because a smart object can contain multiple layers, right? I'm just going to drop a shape. Let's go to that same star on top of that document. Now I'm going to close and save. So click close. It's going to ask if you want to save the document layer1.psb. You tell it yes. And what that does is it saves the changes into the smart object. So now it takes you back to your original document, and what you have is the same smart object layer 1. But if you look at it now, it has a whole lot more elements added to it, right? That are part of the pixels that make up the image. Everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, again, if we wanted to hide or erase any element, any part of it, we cannot just use the eraser on a smart object because it protects the pixels from being edited. You will get that error. But you can make a selection. This time I'm just going to use my elliptical marker to make a circular selection, right? And we can edit it as needed by making a mask. So layer, let's make a mask a different way this time, right? So we have a selection. If we come down to our layers panel down here, right, we can add a layer mask. If we have a selection, we can add it in two ways. We can simply click it and that will reveal selection. So whatever is selected will currently be revealed. I'm gonna go back, Control Z. Or we can press Control, I believe, and if we click on it, it will actually do the reverse. Sorry, not Control, Alt. Alt and click, right? It will actually do the reverse and hide the selection for me. All right, so it's the same as accessing it from the menus, layer, layer mask, and reveal selection and hide selection, but you can actually access it from the layers panel down here. Any questions on that so far?
I lost there, so now.
You're a little lost. Tell me what have you lost? What you don't understand?
So the second one you want to just where I lost on that one.
Oh wait, okay. So again, let's just do the fish. So I have that selection saved. I can pull it up. So select, load selection. And we want to pull up the fish, right? Okay. So it's not in the exact same spot. Let me just move my selection a little bit. I'm just moving my selection a little bit. Not something that you want to do in regular designing, but again, in the interest of time, we can do that. All right. So everybody see my fish is selected, right? The method you take to select it, whether you use the polygonal lasso, the magic wand, is of little consequence right now. The important thing is that you made your selection. So we want to mask out everything around the fish so that we just have the fish visible. Yes? Do you understand how you would do it using the menu? Layer, layer mask, reveal selection. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Right. So I'm just going to show you the easier way to do it, which is not through the layer menu. I can actually come down to the layers panel, and there's a button here. You see that button? It says add a layer mask. Everybody can see that add a layer mask button right here. With my selection made, if I simply click on this button, it will add a layer mask based on the selection and do the exact same thing as to reveal the selection for me. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Let me go back one more time. And I was just showing you how we would do the reverse. So what we did was we revealed the area that was selected and hid everything else. The reverse would be, if we go to layer, layer mask, we can hide the selection, which will hide our selection, which is the fish, and reveal everything else. So let me go back again. We can achieve the same thing using the layers panel. I'm just showing you a secondary option, a second method to do the exact same thing. This time, if you press the Alt key on the keyboard, so I'm holding down the Alt key right now, and I'm clicking on add a layer mask, what that will do is that will hide the current selection for me. So it's just another method to create your mask, but this time you don't go through the menu, you go through the panel itself right here. Everybody get that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, it's not formal homework, but here's what I want you guys to try, especially those of you that didn't actually do the last one for me. I want you to find the two objects, and this time I want you to isolate them using a non-destructive method. So, the method that we use is layer mask right now. So isolate the objects using a layer mask rather than cutting it out into a new layer. Everybody understand what they have to do?
Yes, sir.
sir.
All
We
right.
repeat it again. I'm write it down.
So the homework this time is similar to the last one. So you have to select two objects, right? And I want you to isolate them, right? So to get them by themselves with none of the background or surrounding pixels. But I want you to do it in a non-destructive manner. So just to illustrate, this fish here, it looks like it's isolated, but it's non-destructive. So if I were to just delete the mask, I can bring the entire layer back into view. All right. Now in the next class, we're going to be going a bit deeper into the smart objects, right? And as you can see, this layer was actually turned into a smart object. All right. Everybody can remember how we edit the smart object. Let's say I want you to remove this star from the object here. How would I remove this star?
Using your paintbrush.
Using the paintbrush? No, because it's a smart object. If I were to try to use the paintbrush, first of all, the paintbrush would not give me back the background. It would just paint on it in red, like the red spots. But if I were to click on the smart object, I get an error. This smart object must be rasterized before proceeding. Edit contents will no longer be available. And it's asking, rasterize the smart object. We don't want it rasterized because if it's rasterized, we cannot edit it anymore. Not in the way that it's saved right now with the star as a separate layer. Here's what we do. We right click on the layer What next?
Edit content.
The content.
Right. That's going to open the content of the smart object into a new document. It's a PSB document. And you're going to see all of the components that actually make up the smart object, such as your star layer. Right? I can just delete it at this point. Close. It's important when it asks you to save the smart object, select yes for the changes to be updated. And then we should have the original smart object back, but this time with no star because we removed it.
So, sir, if you wanted to remove those red spots.
If I wanted to remove the red dots, unfortunately, let me show you. Edit contents again. Those red dots were added on top of the pixels, meaning I used the brush and I brushed over the pixels. That was a destructive edit. I cannot, unfortunately, get those fishes back, right? So the way to get it back would be to find the original document, right? And well, again, without the red, and put it back. Put it back into your working document. So a quick question for you guys. I added those, sorry. 1 second, let that update. So I added those red spots on the fishes, right? On the smart object in a destructive manner. Can anybody tell me how I would cover the main object, that main fish here, using a red blob of some sort, but do it in a manner that is non-destructive?
So by using the shape tool?
Right, I could use the shape tool. So I could build it into the smart object or put it as a separate layer. Let's work with the smart object because that's what we're going to be working with in the next class anyway. So right click on the layer, click edit contents. Right, I don't even have to use the shape tool. I could create a new layer, a new blank layer, right? Layer 2, and I could use the brush tool and brush over it. It's still a pixel edit, but it's not anything where we need a specific shape. We just want to cover it in red, right? But because it's on a separate layer, I can always make that layer invisible, right? And just view the original pixels. It's not on the same layer like these, which actually replace the multicolored pixels with red pixels, making us not able to get it back simply. Everybody get that? So we can put back that layer. And let's close and save. And it's going to look as if we painted over the fish with the brush tool. Yeah, but it was done non-destructively because we can edit our smart object and get back the pixels that were there. Yeah. Any questions on masking or destructive and non-destructive editing? Everybody go with that? Any questions on smart objects so far?
So far, no.
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So what I want you to do today is try to master the concept of masking, right? Masking is your way to hide elements or to reveal elements non-destructively. So that's what I want you to focus on for today. You have the option of pulling it up from your menu. You go layer, layer mask, and you have your options here. If you have a selection, you will get more options like reveal and hide selection, right? And before we close up, I'm just gonna give you guys a brief overview of the vector mask, right? I don't really want you guys to play with it too much right now because it involves working with vectors and using the pen tool. But I know some of you are a bit advanced, so if you guys want to experiment with the vector mask, you can do that as well. Again, let me illustrate how it would actually work, all right? So with the vector mask, the advantage of it is you have a vector. right? So let's first reveal all. Actually, no, hold on. Let's do it using current path. So I made a path, right? With the pen tool, we could use current path. And essentially what that will do is create a mask with the path. The difference between the layer mask and the vector mask is we edit the vector mask by painting on the mask with either white or black to hide or reveal, right? With the vector mask, because it's masked with a vector, we can actually edit our points to edit our mask. So using my direct selection tool, which is what I edit my vectors with, I can click on any individual point and move it and edit my mask that way, which gives me a lot more cleaner edits and the ability to edit it on the fly, right? So some people prefer that option. I can also use my pen tool to edit my path. Say I want to add an anchor point to create a new point here, a new point here, and a new point here. So I previously had 3 points creating a triangle, but now I have multiple points on that vector mask, so I can manipulate it in more ways now to get exactly what I'm looking for out of my mask. All right, but for now, we're not too concerned with the vector mask. I just want you guys to understand the concept of masking, which is hiding and revealing.